you will identify that I've allocated my parent and my NCI's portions. Right, when we refer back to our steps, we have now completed step number 4. Step number 5, we need to translate the year-end total foreign currency at closing rate to our rand value. Right, now let's do this. We are busy with step number 5. We need to determine what is the total foreign currency, and this is 624,000 times our exchange rate at year end, 16 Rand 40, and this will be a Rand value of 10233,600. Right, 20.18, exactly the same. This is step number 5. Our total foreign currency is 66250. Spot rate at year end 16 Rand 80. And our Rand value is 11193,000. Therefore, we are now able to determine what is the balancing figure. To be able to do this, we need to add the total Rand value column, guys. Look at the blue total Rand value, and this is 100,029,100. And our balancing figure, which will be our step number 6, this will be our FCTR of 204,500. And for 20.18, exactly the same. Our total Rand value is 109,69650, and our balancing figure will be our FCTR 233,350. We can now allocate the portions to our parent and to our NCI. We have completed step 5 and 6, and guys, you will remember that we had a disposal. Therefore, please add this to your revision page. When we refer to the scenario, I have included our IS21 principle in terms of disposals at the bottom, but let's just quickly have a look at the information provided. They reduced the shareholding from 80 to 70%, and then very important, they indicate to us the NCI's amount 140,700 already calculated. Guys, please do not recalculate this if they provide this to you, except if they indicate to you that this is incorrect or there's any clue in terms of IS8 or something like that. Right, therefore when you look at this, they indicate to us that they have calculated this in terms of IFRS 1096. Therefore, you can assume that this is correct. Even if you are able to identify that this is incorrect, don't waste your time to recalculate this if it's not required. Right, now when we look at IS21, IS21 indicates to us that when there is a disposal, we will have to transfer the cumulative FCTR. We need to reclassify this from equity to profit or loss. Therefore, this is a reclassification. And the same rules will apply when there is a change in ownership. In terms of your NCI, when the FCTR should be derecognized, you will not reclassify this to profit or loss. Therefore, when you think about this, in your OCI, remember, in your disclosure of your OCI, you will have 2 sections. You will have a section where we reclassify to profit or loss and where we have not reclassified. Therefore, your FCTR amounts you will include in the reclassification section. Right, therefore, we need to determine what is the cumulative FCTR, and we will have to reclassify this from equity to profit or loss on date of disposal. We are now able to complete our journal entries. Guys, very similar to what you've always been doing. You need to use your analysis of owner's equity and complete your journal entries. My first journal entry will be my at acquisition. Therefore, always try to remember your dates, guys. This is 31 December 20.18. My at acquisition journal entry, we will have to debit. Now, this is a little bit tricky here because we do not have the exact details. Therefore, I will debit my share capital, I will debit retained earnings, and I will indicate that the total of my accounts is 8 million. You will have to debit your intangible asset with a fair value adjustment. Remember, no abbreviations. I do this from a timing point of view, and we need to remember to indicate exactly where. This is statement of changes in equity or statement of financial position, statement of financial position. And when you look at our analysis of owner's equity, our intangible asset is this 480,000. I'm going to make use of an alphabetical sequence for my marker to be able to identify where did I calculate this. We need to credit our NCI, and this is from our analysis of owner's equity, statement of changes in equity, and this will be my B, 2 million. We need to credit the investment in the subsidiary, and this will be my calculation number 1. You remember we have determined this, the 7.6 million. When you look at your analysis of owner's equity, calculation number 1 on the left side, number 1 in the at column. And we will have to debit the goodwill. Our goodwill, and this will be an amount of 1120,000, and I'm going to call this my reference C. 11020000 in my statement of financial position. Remember, you need to use your analysis of owner's equity as your guidance. Now, when you look at this, we have recognized our at acquisition. You now need to refer to the since period. In terms of the since period, we had to recognize additional amortization. Therefore, guys, this 98,400, and let me reference this D. Therefore, our journal entry, we will have to debit our retained earnings. Our retained earnings decrease, statement of changes in equity. We need to credit our accumulated amortization, statement of financial position. Guys, they did not indicate anything about our narrative information, therefore assume that you need to include this, and this is to recognize the amortization on our intangible asset revalued at acquisition date, and this will be 98400, 98400, and this is our reference D. Again, look at your analysis of owner's equity. We need to identify our next set of journals. We need to recognize the FCTR movement in terms of goodwill and the intangible asset. Therefore, when you look at this, our goodwill, the 28,000 increase. Therefore, if our goodwill increase, we need to debit our goodwill, statement of financial position, and this will be the 28,000. We need to debit our intangible asset, statement of financial position, and calculation 2, calculation number 4, and this will be 12,000. 12,000. And what do we credit? We need to credit our FCTR account. You need to write this out, guys. Sorry. Right? And this will be a total of 40,000. And narrative information, the adjustment of our goodwill and fair value adjustment to closing rate at the end of 20.17. Right, still look at your since period. What do we need to remember? We need to allocate the profit to our, or the retained earnings to our NCI. Therefore, when you look at the since period, you will identify that the total of our retained earnings will be the 97,000. No, guys, I'm wrong here. It will be the 97,500. I'm right, yeah. And our amortization, therefore, these two amounts that we need to allocate to our NCI. The recognition of our NCI portion in terms of our retained earnings for 20.17. Again, guys, we need to indicate to our marker where did we get this. 97,500 minus the 19680, and I am going to include E for my marker to be able to identify where this is. Right, again, still busy with your since period. What do we need to do now? We need to allocate the FCTR to our NCI. Therefore, guys, we need to allocate this 5,600 and the 2,400 and the 40,900. We need to allocate all three of these amounts, 5,600, 2,400 and 40900 to our NCI. This will be 48900, and I am going to reference this F for my marker, and I have highlighted this, therefore I'm pretty sure my marker will be able to identify. Now, if we need to allocate this, what is our journal entry? Our NCI increase on the credit side, therefore we need to debit our FCTR account in our statement of changes in equity. Remember, we are in 2018, but this relates to 2017. Therefore, we make use of our FCTR statement of changes in equity, and we need to credit our NCI. And this is the 48,900. We allocate our FCTR portion to our NCI. Right, guys, now you are able to identify that we have completed our since period, and we now need to focus on our current year. You now need to focus on our current year. Therefore, when you look at this, remember, we will have to recognize the intangible assets additional amortization, this 100,800. And let's call this reference H. Okay, so when we look at our journals, guys, on the right side, we will have to debit our amortization in our profit and loss. We need to credit our accumulated amortization in our statement of financial position, H, and this is 100,800. Right, next, what do you identify in your analysis of owner's equity? We have to allocate our NCI's portion of the profit. Therefore, this will be the total of this 182050 minus 20160, and this will be 151810. And we are going to reference this I, and we will have to debit our NCI in our profit and loss and credit our NCI in our statement of changes in equity. Remember, NCI increase on the credit side, H 151810. Next, when you look at your current year, we need to allocate the portion in terms of our goodwill and our intangible asset in terms of our foreign exchange. Now, guys, important, look at the journal entry. Again, we will have to debit intangible asset. Please write this out, statement of financial position, and debit the goodwill. And when you look at our amounts, this will be the 28,000 and the 12,000. Therefore, let's include this 28,000 and our 12,000. Right, we need to reference this calculation 3, calculation 5. Guys, I know the referencing does take quite some time, but I promise you, if you do this, your marker will be lenient, because your marker will be able to identify where did you calculate everything. And now we credit, guys, look at this, our FCTR, which is an exchange difference, in our OCI. Look at the difference here, guys. And this will be 40,000. In terms of our previous journal, in relating to 20.17, we've credited the statement of changes in equity. Look at this. The 20.18 amount in 20.18 OCI with a 40,000. Right, guys. Now, look at your current year. Next, what do we need to do? We need to allocate the portions in terms of our FCTR of our NCI. Again, guys, look at our journal entry, a little bit different compared to the previous one. We now need to add the 5,600. Let me just make use of another color here, guys. Yellow. 5,600, 2,400, and the 46,670. you will identify that this is a 44670, not 46670, guys. Apologies. Right. Now, the total is 52670. Now, look at this again for me. You will identify that we will debit our NCI in our OCI account because we are within 2018 and this relates to the 2018 details. Compared to our previous journal, we've debited, guys, our FCTR in our statement of changes in equity. Do you see this in terms of our NCI's portion? Right, now let's move on. Right, guys, look at your current year. We still have our 50,400. Remember, this is the unrealized profit we need to eliminate. If we need to eliminate this, remember, this is included in the other income. Therefore, we will have to debit our other income. Other income decrease on the debit side of our profit or loss with the 50,400. And we need to credit our PPE. You need to write this out. Statement of financial position with the 50,400. Then again, guys, we need to reference this. Let's call this J and J for our market to be able to follow. Last one, in terms of our analysis of owner's equity, is our dividends, the 63,000. Remember, we need to reference K and we need to eliminate this. Therefore, we will have to debit our dividends received. Again, an income that should decrease, therefore, debit in our profit or loss. And this will be an amount of 50400. Right, exactly the same as the previous one. Right. Okay, so we need to debit our NCI in our statement of changes in equity, and we need to credit the dividends paid in our statement of financial position. Dividends paid to the value of 63,000 and our NCI 12,600. Our last journal entry in terms of the reclassification adjustment. What do we need to do? What is the amount that we need to reclassify? Your journal entry will be as follows. Okay, so you will have to debit your reclassification adjustment in your OCI, a decrease, and credit a gain on disposal of interest. Now, I know we do not have all of the details, guys, but you can look at the information that we do have. Okay, reclassification, we need to take out the 10% sold. Now, when we look at our analysis of owner's equity, in our parents column, the FCTR of 22,400, 9,600, and 163,600. This total is a total of 195,600. When you look at our 20.18 year, 22,400, 9,600, 186,680. This total, guys, is 1210680. Do you see this? Therefore, we are able to identify the total FCTR that we have allocated to our parent is an amount of 406,280. Right, now how are you going to reference this for your market to be able to identify? I know, already extremely busy. Well, we still have L and M. Therefore, in your calculation, indicate that this is L plus M, and M is 210680, and L is 195,600. Okay, therefore divide this by 80 times 10, and the amount that we will reclassify will be 89915. And let's include this 89915. Okay, so guys, if this was challenging, you can refer to Group Statements, Volume 2, Example 15.5, and this is on page 407. This is a very good comprehensive example in terms of disposal of foreign operations. You will also identify in the solution there's quite a lot of marks Therefore, based on your normal knowledge, guys, to allocate the NCI's portions, retained earnings, profit or loss, dividends, even if you could just remember that the goodwill is a separate asset, you should be able to pass this question. If you have any questions, please let me know.